Hello everyone and welcome to the series finale of the Search for the Worst Cartoon, a series where I try to find the worst cartoon ever made because trust me, it's not Teen Titans Go. Yes, you heard me right, series finale. I'm sorry, this is the last episode I can make because, oh boy, I think I might have found it, guys. I think I might have found it. Listen, I'm sure Velma is terrible. I'm sure Ren and Stimpy's whatever is terrible. I'm sure those are terrible. There is no way it can get worse than this. There is no way it can get worse than this. Y'all voted for this, okay? I hope you realize that. This is your fault. This is blood on your hands. What I'm gonna have to look at today. Oh my god, after two admittedly underwhelming episodes, it's like now we have an absolute doozy of a cartoon to look at here. Something absolutely irredeemable. Every other cartoon I've looked at in this series so far, there's at least a few positive things I could say about them. This, nothing. Nothing at all. So let's talk about it a bit. You guys remember when NFTs were a thing? Yeah, they were. NFTs are basically these ugly drawings of like monkeys. Well, sometimes they could be for other things, but most of the time they're these ugly like monkey drawings, ape drawings, whatever, and they're like really bad for the environment. I'm gonna admit that I don't know exactly why they're bad for the environment, and I'm too lazy to look up why they're bad for the environment, but they're bad for the environment, and even if they weren't bad for the environment, they still look ugly, so like it doesn't matter. They're still garbage even if they didn't harm the environment. NFTs are a part of cryptocurrency, which is another thing that I know next to nothing about because I'm not a nerd, and that's basically it. That's all the knowledge you're gonna get of crypto and Bitcoin and all that stuff. NFTs, that's all the knowledge you're gonna get. There's your history lesson from me, okay? Throughout 2021, NFTs have gotten a very awful reputation online, but as time went on, NFTs started to die down, and you basically just never see anyone like acknowledge them anymore. They are nowhere near as big as they were in 2021, which is a good thing. And that leads me to my next point. In late 2021, an NFT cartoon was released. Yes, an NFT cartoon. A cartoon featuring NFTs. A cartoon that was released as an NFT. This is the Red Ape Family. This came out in late 2021, and it is... words cannot even begin to describe this thing. My god. A few things that I would like to note. Number one, this is currently the shortest cartoon I've looked at in this series so far. Only 3 episodes have been made of this thing. 3 episodes. And that's it. And the weirdest thing as well is that every episode, there's a really long gap between the episode releases for some reason. Episode 1 came out in November of 2021. Episode 2 came out in April of 2022. And episode 3 came out in May of 2023. I have no idea why it takes so long for these episodes to come out, but whatever. That is beside the point. That is the least of my problems when it comes to this thing. It's also worth noting that this is the first Search for the Worst cartoon to be on an ongoing series. A cartoon that is still going on, assuming we get a 4th episode in 2024. Every other cartoon I've looked at has either been cancelled or it was never intended to get a 2nd season, or it just disappeared with no explanation. So you might be thinking, okay, this can't be that bad. It's only 3 episodes. How bad could it be? Oh, it's something, alright. It is definitely something. I'm just gonna say this right now. The Red Ape Family might be the worst cartoon ever made. Not the worst cartoon I've ever seen. The worst cartoon ever made. I cannot imagine it getting any worse than the Red Ape Family. I can't even begin to describe why this is terrible. This might be the hardest video I've ever had to make, not just for the Search for the Worst cartoon, but just in general, making videos. Because I am so flabbergasted at the quality of this thing. This could be a perfect counterclaim to the whole animation is art thing. This is something else, okay? This is, oh my god. Even if this wasn't related to NFTs, even if like this had no connection to NFTs, or like NFTs weren't bad for the environment, even then, this is still abominable. It's only 3 episodes long, and they are some of the most painful episodes you will ever sit through. I have to rewatch episodes of this thing in order to, like, write down notes, I initially watch the episode, and then like I record a little bit of dialogue, and then eventually when it's time to like describe the episodes and what happens in them, I have to rewatch the episodes and like make notes and do all that stuff. This is something that I am physically unable to do for this show. Not only is it near damn impossible to describe everything that's wrong with this thing, but it's also near damn impossible to even describe what happens in this show. What is this show about? What is the plot of this show? Of the 3 episodes, episode 2 is the only one that has a fairly understandable plot. Episodes 1 and 3 are just... I cannot understand what happens in them. I cannot even comprehend what happens in these episodes. And the most ironic thing about this is that episode 2 is easily the worst of the 3 episodes. Yes, that's right. The only one of the 3 episodes that actually has like an understandable, comprehensible plot is also the worst of the 3 episodes. That is the level of quality we're dealing with here, folks. I'm just saying, y'all voted for this. Y'all could have voted. There were 3 other cartoons that y'all could have chosen instead. You chose this. This is blood on your hands. I hope you realize that. Alright, y'all. I think I've delayed the inevitable long enough, and now it is time for me to sit down and try and explain the Red Ape Family and what happens in it. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And with that said, let us dive in to the first episode. The first episode begins with the titular Red Ape family flying off from one planet to another planet. We then cut to a flashback scene from 2 days earlier, where Chucky, the main character of the series, and the only character whose name I could actually be bothered to remember, is sneaking into a museum. While sneaking through, you can see just how much care was put into this entire project, There really was a lot of dedication and passion put into this entire series, and it's just an absolutely beautiful thing to see, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, Chucky finds what initially seems to be a bar of gold before a group of RoboCop lookalikes with RoboDogs appear. I don't know either. I don't know. Maybe this show is set in the future. I have no idea, okay? This is never explained at all in the show. We then get what is probably the best running animation I have ever seen in any cartoon ever. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I wish this show had more stuff like this running animation and the detective misspelling in it, because I could actually easily see this being a funny bad cartoon. It's instead of being the worst thing ever made, This could have been a funny bad cartoon. This could have been something that's garbage, but at least I would have a fun time watching it and just making fun of how bad it is, Anyways, Chucky escapes the museum, returns home, and shows what he stole to his wife. It turns out that what Chucky stole is a USB drive that contains the most valuable NFT in the world. The RoboCop lookalikes find the family, which prompts them to fly off to another planet. We then get a random cameo appearance from Laurel and Hardy, an old famous comedy duo. I have no idea why they're here. I don't know what Laurel and Hardy have to do with NFTs or anything even remotely related to cryptocurrency. They're just here because it's random, and as we all know, random equals funny. The flashback ends as we cut to the family in line with a bunch of other random characters that I presume are also NFTs. Donald Trump being one of them, because again, random equals funny. It's worth noting that in addition to Chucky, his wife, their 2 sons, and their dog, there's also a lion doctor thing that's just part of the family for some reason. This is something that is never explained in this episode or in either of the 2 succeeding episodes, and I don't think it will ever be explained if this show gets more episodes. Hopefully it doesn't. There's also a talking skull with them, and again, it's never explained who this character is or why they are with the family. Literally nothing is explained in this. The episode ends with 2 other apes spying on the family. Who are these apes? Why are they spying on the family? I don't know. Again, it is never explained. I also love how abrupt the ending of this episode is. For this video, I'm trying to show as little footage of the cartoon as possible, not only to prevent potential copyright issues, but also because of the whole thing where, like, you know, you take screenshots of NFTs, and so I thought it would be funny to take screenshots of this instead of showing footage of it, you know? But I'm gonna make another exception here, and I swear to you, I did not edit this in any way. This is actually how the episode ends. The only edit that I made was I muted the end credits as it contains a potentially copyrighted song. Other than that, I've done nothing. I did not edit this at all. This is actually how the episode ends.
Let me see. What's happening out there?
There is at least 4 apes out there, mi amor.
No way.
We cannot let them all in, surely. But if we do, they can hang around. Get it?
You're kidding, mate. Here, give me that. Hey, neighbours. Who the hell are ya?
I don't know if it's because it's significantly shorter than the other 2 episodes, but episode 1 is easily the least bad of the 3 episodes, and that's saying a lot. Upon rewatching the episode numerous times, God help my soul, I am somewhat able to understand the plot, but stuff like the random Laurel and Hardy cameo and the unexplained other members of the Red Ape family make it really hard to comprehend what's going on. It's just things happen and they're not explained why they happen. It's not explained like why are these characters with the Red Ape family. Nothing is explained at all. The fact that this is the least bad of the 3 episodes should really set off some alarms in your head. Trust me, it gets way worse from here on out. Episode 2 is almost 20 minutes long, and as stated before, it is easily the worst of the 3 episodes. God help us all. Episode 2 begins with a flashback of the first episode's events, before cutting to a collage of videos criticizing the show. There's then a cameo of Jake Paul for some reason, followed by whoever the f*** these are supposed to be, and then we get 2 elderly red apes, which are not explained at all, and then it turns out that this was all a nightmare that Chucky had. What then follows is a problem that is especially present in the latter 2 episodes of the show.
Jesus, it was awful. We were in a universe where we had no backstory or character arcs, and you had a British accent.
What's wrong with that?
People hated it. I saw another universe too, royally by the way, creatures called trolls, who were trapped in a thing called YouTube.
Poor things.
No, they were virgins making reaction videos in their mother's basements, all talking about how we are.
Ah yes, not taking criticism. Roasting the haters, if you will. What a certified epic thing to do, am I right, guys? Now, some of you could say that this is an intentionally bad cartoon, and that the creators of this put this into the show because they knew that it would piss people off, and that by bringing it up here, and actually by extension making this entire video, I am taking the bait and falling into their trap. I am doing what they wanted me to do. On the one hand, that is a very plausible theory, but on the other hand, I feel like that isn't 100% the case. Episodes 2 and 3 feel like they were made to intentionally piss off detractors, but episode 1 feels serious. Episode 1 doesn't have that, yeah, we're gonna make a cartoon that's intentionally bad, and we know it'll get a lot of hate from people on the internet vibe that episodes 2 and 3 have. I truly believe that the creators of this garbage were being completely serious with the first episode, and then due to the backlash they received from it, they decided to disguise every future episode as being quote-unquote intentionally bad, and that includes cheap references to the people that criticized the first episode. Anyways, we then cut to a bar where I will give the second and third episodes a very, very, very tiny bit of credit. The animation in the second and third episodes, although still not very good, are slightly better than in the first episode. In the first episode, the animation is absolutely awful. The mouth movements of the characters look so terrible, and they are extremely distracting and hard to not notice, making the already hard to understand plot even harder to understand. In the second and third episodes, the animation is slightly better, and as much as I hate to admit it, considering the subject matter of this show, there are extremely rare instances where it actually looks kinda decent, but for the most part, the animation still looks bad, and the consistently terrible art style doesn't help either. Yes, I'm a cartoon YouTuber that actually knows the difference between animation and art style. We exist. So we then cut to one of the Red Ape sons hanging out with this big pink ape. As the family arrives and confronts the pink ape, he warns them that the golden NFT they stole will have everyone hunting them. We then cut to a bathroom door with another typo on it, this time intentional, referring to it as a meme typo. This is definitely a reference to the detected typo that was in the first episode, and it only further strengthens my theory that the first episode was made with serious intentions, but the second and third episodes were made to be quote-unquote intentionally bad. They're in on the joke. They're self-aware that this is a bad show. Basically the Birdemic 2 approach. Make something that's so bad it's good, or in this case, something offensively bad with serious intentions, and then follow it up with something that's self-aware that it's bad. That's definitely not going to make this even worse than it already is. Totally not. Anyways, in the bathroom, the lion doctor is trying to hypnotize itself. I guess he has hypnotizing powers now. This was something that was not hinted at all before this, but whatever. Outside the bar, you have the white ape couple from the end of the previous episode, who I guess just so happened to work at the bar. The female mentions how the Red Ape family have the golden NFT, which they didn't know about beforehand, which only makes it even more confusing as to why they were spying on the family in the first episode. The male claims that he no longer lives that life and doesn't want anything to do with NFTs, which is again something that wasn't elaborated on before. I don't know about you guys, but when these two appeared in the first episode, nothing about them screamed, I think these two have an interest in NFTs. The Red Ape family leave the bar, the two sons get into an argument of sorts, and one of them leaves while the others go into an elevator back home. I love how not a single one of the family members questions where the son is going or leave the elevator to get him. It's just quality story writing right there. The kid walks away depressed before getting ambushed by the two white apes, and then Laurel and Hardy show up again, and it turns out that they are working with the giant pink ape, because of course they are. Also, in the previous episode, Laurel and Hardy noticed the Red Ape family escaping the planet that they were on, so how and why are they now on the same planet that they were residing in, if it was implied that they were on a different planet? I'm just so confused right now, okay? It never ends with this thing, okay? It never ends. The giant pink ape ends up kidnapping the Red Ape's son. Back home, the Red Ape family receive a message from Dr. Jeeves, the main antagonist of the show, and the only other character whose name I can remember. The lion and the skull point out that Dr. Jeeves steals all kinds of NFTs. This is supposed to be the first time the family meets Dr. Jeeves, so how they know any of this is, surprise, surprise, never explained. Dr. Jeeves explains that he has kidnapped the Red Ape's son, and that if he doesn't get the golden NFT from them, their son will die. After that, we get a brief diss at Saberspark, another cartoon YouTuber who had made several videos on the Red Ape family, and this is meant to be some kind of epic roast. I don't know, honestly. Listen, man, I'm tired, and I really want to get this done with, okay? We then cut to the family flying to rescue their son. They arrive at an auction ready to confront Dr. Jeeves. Dr. Jeeves is holding a presentation with the kidnapped son, showing off a remote that could turn any living being into an NFT, and he plans to use it on the son. The family then ambush the place as they fight off the security, who are a bunch of blue cats, for some reason. You know, I just realized something. If by some chance you went into this, like you stumbled upon this show without knowing a single thing about NFTs, you would have no idea what the is going on. This is all stuff that would only make sense to a very, very niche group of people. Anyways, the family all throw cucumbers at the cats, which scares them away for some reason. What the is this show? Seriously, like, what is happening in this? Why the what is this thing for real? Eventually, Dr. Jeeves summons what he claims to be his most dangerous NFT, which is, and I really wish I was kidding about this, a baby version of Elon Musk. One of the sons throws a Bitcoin at baby Elon, and just as Chucky starts to escape, baby Elon is suddenly able to talk because of the Bitcoin, claiming that it freed him. He gives Chucky a mushroom, telling him that it will quote-unquote reveal his origin and show him his true path. And it is then revealed that Dr. Jeeves somehow managed to get the golden NFT from the family. As the episode comes to an end, Chucky's wife tells him to throw the mushroom away. However, secretly, he eats the mushroom. We then get the only scene in the entire show that actually has good animation and a good art style. Chucky gets a vision of the Robocops and Robo-Dogs from the first episodes attacking a village of apes. A family sends their child away to safety before becoming the golden NFT, I think, and then being eaten by a fish. And the hallucination ends, and by extension, the episode as a whole finally comes to an end as well. Episode 2 is, as stated before, the worst of the 3 episodes, bar none. It is also the longest of the 3 episodes, and the only one to have an actually sort of comprehensible storyline. So do what you will with that information. It took me at least an hour to write down the script for this part of the video, because there is so much stuff wrong with this episode. Almost every issue that I have with this show is present in this episode alone, and if more episodes of this garbage ever get made, I can only hope that none of them, not a single one of them, come close to being as bad as this episode. With that said, let us move on to the third and hopefully last episode of the Red Ape Family. The final episode begins with Chucky's wife asking why he stole the golden NFT in the first place, and it's revealed that he was sent out by an anonymous individual to steal it. It is also hinted that in addition to baby Elon, there are also baby versions of other billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates. Guys, listen to me, okay? I know this is painful, but listen, this is the final episode, and should a 4th episode ever be released, I will not make a follow-up video discussing it. We will get through this, I promise. Anyways, it turns out that baby Zuckerberg, God, I feel like an idiot just talking about this thing right now, has taken over Earth with his cyborgs in order to find the family. The Lion Doctor pulls up a documentary on the quote-unquote war on Earth and selects Morgan Freeman as the narrator. I have no idea if they got an impersonator to voice Morgan Freeman or if it's one of those AI voice things, but I genuinely wouldn't be surprised at all if it was the latter.
For eons, they all continued to pass on their knowledge to their clones. Clones that exist even until today. Just think of Baby Zuck as Darth Vader, Baby Gates as Emperor Palpatine, and Dr. Jeeves as, well, Jabba the Hutt.
Anyways, this great war on Earth consisted of 4 baby versions of billionaires. On one side, you have baby Jeff Bezos and baby Elon Musk, and on the other side, baby Mark Zuckerberg and baby Bill Gates. Of the 4, baby Zuckerberg was the only one to win the war on Earth. There's a bunch of other stuff that I am not going to talk about at all, because the last thing I want to do with my life right now is talk about Red Ape Family lore. So as it turns out, the family is now moving away again because they're being tracked down, I guess. Baby Elon then contacts Chucky telepathically and tells him that Dr. Jeeves has captured him again. We get another shot of this show owning the haters, and guys, I can't do this anymore. This is too much for me. Episode 3 is a nothing burger episode, which is somewhat of a good thing considering how disastrous episode 2 is, but still, it's just, there is nothing in this episode that's worth talking about. I will just be repeating the same stuff that I've said on the first 2 episodes. It's just, there is nothing to say at all. You know, when I was about to go into this thing, I had one question in my head. Would this still be a terrible cartoon if it wasn't related to NFTs? Like, how bad would it be still if it wasn't related to NFTs? Or if NFTs weren't bad for the environment? I went into the Red Ape Family thinking that the only bad thing about it would be that it's about NFTs, and that's it. As it turns out, there is so much wrong with this entire thing. Nothing in this show works. Nothing at all. This would still be the worst cartoon I've looked at on this series, even if it wasn't related to NFTs, or NFTs weren't bad for the environment. Easily. This is only 3 episodes long. This is the shortest cartoon I've looked at in this series so far. But it is also the hardest show that I've ever had to sit through on this series. There are extremely rare instances where this could be a funny bad show, but it's just, for the most part, it is just so hard to sit through this thing. I can't even talk about any of this stuff, you know, golden NFT, baby Elon Musk. I feel like a f***ing idiot right now. Like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing? It is genuinely really hard for me to sit through this thing, and I cannot go on anymore. I'm sorry. You want to know how bad episode 3 is? Watch it yourself. Or maybe, like, just, I'm sure there's like a YouTube video talking about it somewhere, but I cannot be bothered to talk about it. I cannot. I don't care if it's the final episode. I don't care if we already got the worst out of the way, the worst of the worst out of the way at least, and now we're entering slightly less worse territory. I don't care at all. I'm done. The Red Ape Family is easily the worst cartoon I've looked at in this series so far, and it could very easily be the worst cartoon ever made. I cannot see it getting any worse than the Red Ape Family. There is no way that, like, Velma or whatever is worse than this. There is actually no f***ing way. I refuse to believe that. I knew at some point Little Salmon Cat would be dethroned as the worst cartoon I've looked at in this series so far, and here it is now. It's officially been dethroned. There are tons of other cartoons that I have planned to look at on this series, because you never know. There could always be something worse than the Red Ape Family. It is possible. It is very unlikely, but it is possible that there is a cartoon worse than the Red Ape Family. This cartoon made me angry. Like, I genuinely got angry watching this. I never felt this way with any of the previous cartoons that I've looked at in this series. Not even something like Control-Alt-Delete didn't even make me angry, you know? Control-Alt-Delete is not good at all, but, like, what makes Control-Alt-Delete different from this is that a lot of the questionable writing and whatnot in it could just come off from it being a very incompetent, poorly made cartoon. Whereas with this, it's just, nothing makes any sense at all. It is just genuinely baffling to me. I don't doubt the possibility that there are other NFT cartoons out there, other, like, crypto-based cartoons. I'm not gonna look at them. Red Ape Family is enough, okay? I will review a million Family Guy clones on this channel before I ever review another NFT cartoon. I genuinely hate this show. It is awful. If the Red Ape Family isn't the worst cartoon ever made, I'm not sure I want to know what is. But it cannot be Velma. It cannot be Ren and Stimpy's whatever. It cannot be any of those. I'm sorry. So anyways, that's about it. I know this is a bit of a long video, but man, I had a lot of stuff to say about this thing. So yeah, I was not prepared for how bad this thing was gonna be, so yeah, there's that. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be very greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye. Well, that didn't take very long. Only 2 episodes later, and I've already found something that has dethroned the Red Ape Family as being the worst cartoon I've looked at on this series, and quite possibly the worst cartoon ever made. Just wonderful, seriously. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Search for the Worst Cartoon, a series where I try to find the worst cartoon ever made, because trust me, it's not Teen Titans Go. Today we're going to be talking about a cartoon based on this extremely obscure musician who you've probably never heard of, named Eminem. He was this rapper. He's not very well known. He never really had any hit songs. He's very obscure. You've probably never heard of him. He had a couple songs. He had this one song called Lose Yourself. It was alright, I guess. It wasn't a big hit. It didn't win any historical awards or anything like that. It was an average song. Nothing special. Nothing to write home about. In all seriousness though, Eminem needs no introduction. He is one of the most famous rappers of all time. He's had a lot of hit songs. I know that his career is a bit of a roller coaster. His first album came out in 1996 and it is extremely obscure. Not a whole lot of people know about it. His second, third, and fourth albums are all regarded as classic rap albums, and then everything after is a mixed bag, to say the least. I've heard that these 3 in particular are really bad, but I don't know anything about them, so I'm not going to go into any further detail. I just know that, like, these are bad albums, apparently. I admittedly don't listen to Eminem all that much. This isn't me saying, like, I don't like his music or I don't like him. Of course, I know the big hits. I know Lose Yourself. I know The Real Slim Shady. I know My Name Is. I know all of that. If you want to count it as well, I know it might be a little controversial, but I know his later, more poppy hits like Rap God and The Monster and Love the Way You Lie, if you want to count those. But I've never like listened to Eminem like an album of his. I only know like the big songs whenever they come on the radio, and that's it. I guess that could just be attributed to me not being like super into rap music. No, this isn't going to be a lay wrong generation, rap is bad, rock is good nonsense thing. Don't worry, it's just a personal taste. I don't doubt that there are amazing rap albums out there. It's just not a genre that I'm really like too familiar with when I get like really deep down into it, okay? I don't hate rap music, okay? I'm not gonna go on a pretentious 17-minute long lecture on how Bohemian Rhapsody is the greatest song ever made. I'm not gonna waste my time hating on mumble rap, a genre that I'm 99% sure doesn't actually exist and is a made-up genre, and say like today's kids need to listen to real music from the past, and the real music from the past in question is lame crap like the Eagles or Aerosmith or whatever. Guys, I'm sorry, I gotta say this right now. Aerosmith sucks. Okay? They suck. They're lame. Listen, I love classic rock. I love Led Zeppelin. I love The Who. Aerosmith sucks. They're lame. Okay? Dream On is the only good song they ever made, and that's it. I suppose maybe they have a couple other songs that are okay as well, but a grand majority of their songs are complete trash. I'm sorry. Boomers will say Gucci Gang is a terrible song that represents everything wrong with modern music or whatever, and then they'll go and listen to Crying or Dude Looks Like a Lady or I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, all of which are infinitely worse than Gucci Gang. I'm sorry. On a side note, I love how boomers and late wrong generation nerds frequently bring up Lil Pump as proof that modern music is bad, as if Lil Pump is this extremely famous rapper that everyone's listening to now, and not a one-hit wonder from 2017, 6 years ago. It just goes to show how out of touch they are, seriously. Oh yes, clearly modern music is bad because of a 6-year-old song that nobody cares about anymore and a 3-year-old song that nobody cares about anymore, because that makes sense. I'm sorry for going off on a bit of a tangent. It's just, you know, I hate later wrong generation people. I hate that stuff, boomers and stuff. I hate listening to like old music from like the 70s or 80s, and the comments are just people whining about how today's generation is really bad and whatever. But yeah, to make a long story short, Eminem, I know the big hits. I got nothing against the guy or his music. I'm not a fan, but it's more just like I'm not like super deep into his discography. I'm sure like the 3 albums that he made during his peak are all amazing albums. But I'm not here to talk about Eminem. I'm here to talk about the cartoon about Eminem. This is the Slim Shady Show. This is from the very early 2000s. I don't know the exact date this was made, but I presume this was made in 2000, 2001. It's definitely one of those 2 years. This is apparently an online cartoon. It was released on the internet. A total of, I believe, 9 episodes were made for the show. I'm not exactly sure. There isn't really a whole lot of information out there for the show, so I'm just going with what I know. And what I do know is that this is one of the worst things ever made. Oh my god. You know, I feel like I frequently say this a lot, but this might be the hardest cartoon I've had to review on this series. But this time it's for something different. It's not because it's a nothing burger cartoon where it's like nothing noteworthy happens, nothing notably bad happens. Believe me, there's a lot of notably awful things in this show. But it's not like with Red Ape Family where it was just like words could not describe it because it was just really hard to understand what happens in it. With this, like I could understand what happens in this show. Like I could understand the plot and whatever, the storylines of the episodes. I could understand them. The execution, though, is so awful. It's genuinely insane to me. My god, this is something right here. Like, oh man. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. With that said, let us dive in to the Slim Shady Show. Possibly the worst cartoon ever made. For real this time. There are quite a few main characters in the Slim Shady Show. None of them I can be bothered to remember their names for, because almost none of them have any sort of personality or character. The only 2 characters who I'll remember their names for are Slim Shady, obviously, and Marshall Mathers. And now I am aware that Marshall Mathers is Eminem's real name, and I am aware that from what little I know, apparently Slim Shady is like an alter ego for Eminem. It's not like a nickname or like anything like that. It's not a nickname or a second stage name for Eminem. It's an alter ego. They're meant to be different people, which is fine, I guess. But what makes this confusing is that in one episode of the show, there's a scene where Eminem himself appears, and it's just straight up just like that. It's like a cameo or something. It's Eminem making a cameo in his own cartoon. Like, that's basically what it is, and it's really confusing. I would have thought that Marshall Mathers and Eminem were the same person, but I guess not. It's like really confusing, man. It's like that SpongeBob episode where it's like, you're Squidward, he's Squidward, I'm Squidward. Are there any other Squidwards that I need to know about? Like, that's literally what this is like. It's so confusing. Eminem lore is way more complex than I thought. Goodness gracious. Given how the 2 have very similar physical traits, I have to wonder, are they like related in some way? It's never explained at all. Are they friends? Are they brothers? Is this like a up father and son thing? I have no idea, honestly. The main thing that I want to focus on with the Slim Shady Show is the humor. or rather the lack thereof. There are only 2 jokes in this entire show. The first joke are celebrity jokes. In almost every episode of this thing, there's a scene where Slim Shady and this other guy go up to a celebrity and basically insult him and sometimes violently beat him up. Exactly the same for all of them. There is no joke at all. It is entirely possible to satirize, celebrities and whatnot, but this is not how you do it. There's like not even an attempt to make it good. Some celebrities parodied on the show include Ben Affleck, Leonardo DiCaprio, Christina Aguilera, one of the guys from House of Pain. You guys know that song Jump Around? Yeah, this is meant to be a parody of like one of the guys that made that song.
Hey, Neverlast, what happened to House of Shame, huh? Can't jump around with the homies no more, can ya?
A literal one-hit wonder from the early 90s. That's the barrel they're scraping here. None of these are done in a funny, humorous way at all. This isn't me being like offended or whatever. It is entirely possible to satirize celebrities, but like this is not how you do it. And there's imagery in this show that I just straight up cannot show at all, because if I do, if I show the imagery, if I even describe it, the video will get taken down, just straight up. It's worth noting as well that I watched this on YouTube. There's no age restriction or anything like that. It's just completely free to watch on YouTube, which is insane to me. I mean, that says more about YouTube than it does the show, but it's still... There's also a lot of really edgy humor in this show, and like, listen, I have nothing against offensive humor. I have nothing against black comedy, but this isn't even that. This is just trying to be as edgy as possible. It's like a high schooler or something, like some like edgy 14-year-old made this. I know that back when this was made, Eminem's like his whole shtick was that he was like really edgy and whatever, and he was like causing controversies and stuff in his lyrics, but like this is genuinely really hard to watch because of that. I'm not trying to say like, oh, we gotta cancel Eminem or whatever, because I guarantee you, he either doesn't remember this show's existence, or he does remember it, but he deeply regrets it. There is no way he could still be like proud of this thing. I'm sorry. This isn't me being like, oh, it's problematic, we gotta cancel Eminem. It's just like, you could do like offensive humor properly. There is a way for it to work, but it just fails so badly, The animation and art style are really bad, but given how this is a web cartoon from the early 2000s, this was back when like the internet was in a very primitive state, I guess I could give it a pass. I'm not sure, but the humor of this show is the main problem with it. It's genuinely just really unfunny. To give you an idea of the edgy humor that this show has, there's an episode where Slim and the others play around with a Ouija board, and one of the ghosts that they summon is Kurt Cobain. I don't think I can show it without like getting demonetized, but Kurt doesn't have a head. Yeah, that's nice. That's great. A nice reference. Very, very funny. Hilarious, man. This isn't me being like, oh, I'm so offended, I'm so sensitive, whatever. I don't have a problem with offensive, like, humor. I have a problem with offensive humor that's done poorly. And this is just done poorly. This is like edgy middle schooler humor right here. This is like something like a 14-year-old would find this funny. I also find the constant celebrity insults thing to be really ironic. There's a scene in one episode where one of the characters is like talking about how like celebrity culture is pointless and stupid and whatever, and like I don't disagree with it necessarily. Like it could be like there could be valid points there, but it's definitely aged like milk given how Eminem is basically a celebrity now. I feel like he was arguably a celebrity when this came out as well, because this came out in like 2000 or 2001. By the time this came out, he was already really popular. The Slim Shady LP came out in 1999, and that was a massive success. I don't know if this came out before or after the Marshall Mathers LP. This definitely came out before the Eminem show, but I don't know about the Marshall Mathers LP. But regardless, he was really popular. He was a really famous, he was famous, basically. He was really popular. And then, like, shortly after this came out, he had that movie 8 Mile, and then that had Lose Yourself, and that was a massive hit as well. That the first rap song to win the Oscar for Best Original Song, you know. Even when this came out, I'm pretty sure he was a celebrity. So this just comes off as being really hypocritical and poorly aged.
Dave, why is it that if more people see your face, like on a magazine or television or something, people think you're like more important all of a sudden?
Yeah.
I mean, what makes one person better than another person just because he's seen by more people?
Uh-huh.
I mean, most of these actors, models, they never went to a top college. They never do anything for anybody.
Yeah.
What about doctors, architects, fine literature? Why don't we value that?
And then on extremely rare occasions, there are moments where the show can be really funny in how bad it is. Some of the animation can be funny because of how terrible it looks, even if this is an early 2000s web cartoon. There are moments in this show that are genuinely comedy gold when you take them out of context.
Robert Downey Jr.
That's what bothers me, to be honest. Like, this could have been a funny, bad cartoon. Instead, it's just really hard to sit through. I'm getting really sick of these, actually. I'm sick of looking at these cartoons that, on some occasions, they can be funny bad, and then for the most part, they're just really hard to sit through. There's this, there's Control-Alt-Delete, there's the Red Ape Family. It's just getting, like, I'm just so sick of it. When am I gonna get something so bad it's good? When am I gonna get, like, The Room of cartoons? When is that gonna happen? How is it that the Henry Danger cartoon of all things, the last cartoon that I would expect to be funny bad, and it is funny bad? Like, that's genuinely crazy to me. How is that possible? The Slim Shady show reminds me a lot of The Idol, that really awful show from The Weeknd that came out earlier this year. Both shows feature a heavily respected musician in them. Both shows are offensively awful, and both shows somehow didn't end the careers of their respective musicians despite being offensively awful. I know that this came out in the early 2000s. I know that, like, Eminem's whole thing back then was that he was, like, edgy and offensive, but, like, still, people thought this was good? Seriously? Like, this isn't even like, oh, I'm offended, I'm a offended liberal snowflake millennial, whatever. Like, this is just unfunny. Like, there's no way to put it. Even if you like dark humor, this is just crap, for real. The very first episode of the show involves Slim and the gang going to the South Park cast to get revenge on them because I guess they lost a basketball game to the South Park cast. Why is it South Park specifically? I have no idea, but it's South Park. I just don't know at all. I'm gonna assume this is like a diss at South Park. I'm gonna assume it's like, yeah, bro, this is the next big thing, you know? South Park is old news. South Park is irrelevant. It's all about that Slim Shady show sweep, baby. That's what the kids are into now. I don't know. At the end of the episode, they kidnap Kenny, and then at the beginning of the second episode, Mr. T comes out and kidnaps Kenny from them. And then that's just it. That's the last time you see, like, anything South Park related in the show. Okay, so as it turns out, there are 3 types of jokes in the Slim Shady show: celebrity bad, ow the edge, and random equals funny. That's just lovely. I feel like I'm not going into enough detail as to why this show is bad, but the thing is, there's a lot of imagery in this show that's genuinely really disgusting, and if I show it, like, uncensored, or if I even describe the imagery, I'm pretty sure the video will get demonetized or even taken down, and I don't want to take that risk. I feel like this is kind of something that, like, you have to see it to believe it in order to get an idea of how bad it is. This might be the first cartoon where that's the case, where, like, you gotta watch it to truly grasp how bad it is. I originally couldn't decide how this compared to The Prince and the Red Ape Family, which in the previous episode were both tied together for being the worst cartoon that I've looked at on this series. If you can believe it, despite how offensively terrible this show is, it didn't make me as angry as The Prince or the Red Ape Family. The Red Ape Family pissed me off a lot just because, like, I couldn't even understand what was going on in it, and the stuff that I did understand just made me feel like an idiot, ironically enough. At least with this, I could understand what happens in it, even if it is, again, and really stupid. And the prince pissed me off mainly just because of the development hell that the video for it went through. It's a long story and none of y'all need to hear it. I'm sorry. In terms of quality though, this is easily the worst cartoon I've looked at. Like somehow Red Ape Family is higher quality than this. The f***ing NFT cartoon is higher quality than this. That's genuinely sad. I think about it more and it's just, there is literally nothing good about this show. I mean, yeah, there's a couple so bad it's good moments, but like I have to wonder, should I consider those positives or not? I thought about it more and I realized, yeah, this is garbage. This should be at the bottom. Why would this not be at the bottom? So here it is. Just like that, the Red Ape Family has been dethroned as the worst cartoon on this series so far. And I have a feeling the Slim Shady show will hold that title permanently because I genuinely cannot see it being worse than this. I genuinely cannot see it getting worse than the Slim Shady show. While we're at it, I've also decided that the prince is no longer tied with the Red Ape Family, and it's slightly less bad than the Red Ape Family. The bottom 3 cartoons are still some of the worst things I've ever seen, but somehow the prince manages to be the least bad of the 3. I have no idea. Eminem has made many milestones throughout his career, and one of those milestones that I feel like should be talked about more is that he created, or at the very least, he was involved with the creation of the worst cartoon ever made. The next time I hear a song from him on the radio, the next time I hear Lose Yourself or Rap God or whatever, The Monster on the radio, I just think to myself, the man who created these songs also made the worst cartoon ever made. This isn't supposed to be like me saying like I hate Eminem or whatever, but it's just an observation that I will have to make from now on whenever I hear an Eminem song. But hey, even if this is the worst cartoon ever made, at least Weight magazine loves it. This is what they have to say about the show on the back of the official Slim Shady Show DVD. The Slim Shady Show makes South Park look like the Smurfs. So true, Weight magazine. So true. Anyways, that's about it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Adios. The internet in 2016 was a very surreal place, to say the least. This was the peak of edgy internet, cringe internet. You know, you had Filthy Frank, you had iDubbbz, you had Leafiest Here, Pyrocynical, Keemstar, the list goes on. This was the era of cringe. This was the era where we would look at something and be like, oh my gosh, guys, this is the cringiest thing ever. This makes me want to drink bleach, am I right, guys? When it came to memes, you had stuff like Damn Daniel, arguably the last big meme to come out of the Vine era, as Vine would shut down later that same year. The death of Harambe, which in retrospect I'm not sure why we made memes and jokes and whatnot about a gorilla dying, but sure, I guess. Again, it was 2016, it was a different time, okay? You had We Are Number One, which was actually a really good meme in retrospect, because not only did the song unironically slap, but it also gave a lot of people, myself included, nostalgia for Lazy Town, as someone that actually watched Lazy Town as a kid, and it was also for a good cause, as it was to help Stefan Carl, the actor that played Robbie Rodden, with his cancer. Unfortunately, in 2018, he would pass away, but, you know, at least we helped him out with these videos. At least these videos were made for a good cause. And then you have the topic of today's video, the Nutshack. The Nutshack is a Filipino-American cartoon, the first Filipino-American cartoon apparently, so yeah, this is kind of historical whether you love it or hate it. It ran for only 2 seasons. The first season came out in 2007 and the second season came out in 2011. I don't know why there was a very long gap between the 2 seasons, but whatever. The show aired on this network called Mix TV, which I guess is like a Filipino version of MTV. I don't know. It was also the only cartoon to ever air on there, so like that's something interesting. And for a long time, this show was extremely obscure. Nobody knew about its existence. That all changed in 2016. You see, there's a YouTube channel named Siva Gunner that uploads quote-unquote high-quality video game rips, basically music from different video games and whatnot. However, all of these rips are usually edited to include like a joke in them, and there's a lot of specific in-jokes regarding Siva Gunner, and the Nutshack would become one of those inside jokes, mainly regarding the theme song of the show. I unfortunately cannot play the theme song for copyright reasons, but basically the theme song just mostly consists of the lyrics "It's the Nutshack" repeated over and over and over again, followed by like a small rap verse, and yeah, that's basically it. It garnered a lot of infamy. It became a massive meme. People were joking about how it's like one of the worst cartoon theme songs of all time. Yeah, it became a huge meme. Looking back at it now, the Nutshack theme song kind of slaps. I don't know about you guys, but it kind of goes. Like, if you look past the repetitive lyrics, the beat is actually like pretty good, and even if the lyrics are repetitive, I cannot imagine any other set of lyrics going alongside this beat, aside from "It's the Nutshack" being repeated a million times. You know what? F*** y'all, I don't care. The Nutshack theme song is unironically good, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. I'm tired of Big Brother trying to gaslight me into thinking that this is one of the worst theme songs ever. Man, shut the f*** up. Y'all, the High Guardian Spice's theme song is genuine trash. That's what y'all should be clowning on. Leave the Nutshack alone. A lot of memes would be made about the theme song, most of which just consist of replacing the word Nutshack with something else. Like, I believe there was like a video that was like the Nutshack theme, but every time they say Nutshack is replaced with the B-movie script or, you know, something like that. Stupid stuff like that. And then on the other side of things, the Nutshack garnered a reputation for being one of the worst cartoons of all time. It went from being this obscure thing that nobody knew existed to being one of the most infamous cartoons ever made. One of the most infamous bad cartoons. And then, ironically enough, after its initial popularity as a meme in 2016, after its resurgence in popularity, it became forgotten about again. Like, literally, as soon as the clock struck midnight and it was now January 1st, 2017, people just forgot about the Nutshack. It was no longer like a funny meme or anything like that. I'm not gonna lie, I felt unusually excited to do this show on this series because number one, I actually did watch the Nutshack back when it was a big meme. I do remember watching it when it was a big meme, and I also remember it being pretty funny in how bad it was. And number two, given a lot of the stuff that I have sat through recently, some of the worst shit that I've ever seen, I was ready to like kick back and just go back in time to 2016 and see whatever the f this was all about. And I've got to say, for the most part, it did not disappoint. Not at all. I'm gonna start this off by saying that this is a f***ing weird show when compared to like some of the other shows that I've looked at. Like when you compare this to like Control Alt Delete or the Slim Shady show, it's definitely weird to describe it. The thing with like Control Alt Delete or the Slim Shady show is that like sometimes there were moments where they would be funny bad, you know, enjoyable in an ironic way, but there wasn't enough of those. Like in the Slim Shady show, there's moments where it can be funny bad, but then for the most part it's just really awful. It's like offensively awful. Control Alt Delete is kind of similar in that sometimes it can be funny bad, but also for the most part it's just kind of embarrassing. Not really offensively bad, but just embarrassing and cringy to sit through. And then the Nutshack is a bit of a fucking weird show in that case, because this show is kind of the opposite of Control Alt Delete and the Slim Shady show in that for the most part it is really funny in how bad it is, but then there are rare instances where it's just really hard to sit through it. Like it's actually exhausting to sit through it. Thankfully though, the good outweighs the bad, and for the most part this is a beautiful train wreck of a cartoon. Adventures of Kid Danger was the only funny bad cartoon that I've looked at on this series prior to the Nutshack, and I must say it has got nothing on this show. I don't think I've ever laughed this much before when it comes to watching a cartoon on this series. Like, this is like a complete 180 from High Guardian Spice. High Guardian Spice is the most boring thing ever made. This is hilarious in how bad it is. It's so goddamn baffling that it's kind of entertaining because of it. It truly is the room of cartoons. Unfortunately, though, it's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. Sometimes there are instances where the show can just be awful to sit through, and I mean like really awful. Sometimes there are moments where the show is just exhausting to sit through, and it's just like, oh god, you know, when will the pain end? But thankfully, that's not as common as the funny bad moments. This show, for the most part, is really funny in how bad it is. This is what I expected out of Slippin' Jimmy. This is what I expected out of the Red Ape Family. This is what I expected out of Control Alt Delete, the Slim Shady Show, any of those shows. I expected those to be funny bad. None of them were. On rare occasions they were, but for the most part they were not funny bad at all. Finally, after 14 episodes, we have finally found an honest-to-God, true, funny, bad cartoon. The best, worst cartoon ever made. So let's talk about it a bit. The Nutshack is about two cousins, Phil and Jack. Jack had recently moved from the Philippines to the United States, and alongside Phil, lives with their uncle Tito Dick, who I have to say is unironically and ironically the best character on the show. Tito Dick is quite possibly the greatest character in all of animation history. He just radiates so much Giga Chad energy, it's not even funny. In addition to these three, you also have Horatio, this thing that Jack has. It's like I believe it might be like an animal that's native to the Philippines. I don't know, but it's like a robot hybrid thing. It's honestly probably one of the worst things about this show, if I were to be honest. It has this really annoying high-pitched voice. Not only is it annoying as hell, but it's also like really hard to understand what this thing is saying sometimes. So yeah, that's an L there. I'm sorry. Rare Nutshack L. The only other main character that I'm gonna bring up is Cheetah, who owns this bar and is like Phil's friend, and Jack has a crush on her. I ain't gonna lie, guys, she's kinda, you know, like, to be honest, you know, I'm just saying, man, she's kinda, you know, oh man, you know, I'm just saying, man, I'm just saying. There's a bunch of other characters, but I don't want to go into detail about them. I'm sorry, there's too many characters to bring up, and it's not worth going through all of them, so I just went through, like, the main characters of the show. The first thing that I want to say is that I actually kind of like the art style of this show. I get that it's a really ugly and unappealing art style, but I also kind of love it because it's ugly and unappealing. It just has that trashy Newgrounds look to it that I kind of love. This show came out in 2007, and I mean this in a positive way when I say that this is probably the most 2007 art style I've ever seen. Funny story, I remember when I was a kid on Nicktoons, there was like this Rocket Power ripoff cartoon. I don't know if any of y'all are gonna know what I'm talking about, but there was this cartoon on Nicktoons. I don't remember the name of it, but it was like this Rocket Power ripoff, and it had an art style that looked very similar to the Nutshack. And I believe back when the Nutshack was a meme, people were like making comparisons to it and this weird Rocket Power ripoff. I have no idea. If any of y'all know what I'm talking about, then yeah, let me know in the comments. Maybe that show might be Search for the Worst Cartoon worthy as well. Who knows? To give you an idea of just how absurd this show can be, there's an episode where all of the weed in the world just disappears, and so Phil and the gang try to find this place that apparently has like the last remaining weed in the world. And it turns out the person that caused all of the weed in the world to disappear is Bob Saget for some reason. It's really stupid, but it's also like it's so stupid and so absurd that it's honestly kind of funny. It might be hypocritical for me to say like this is funny, but then when Slim Shady Show does essentially the exact same thing, it's not funny. But to be fair, when Slim Shady Show does something like this where it's like, oh, celebrity bad, am I right, guys? It's not done in like an absurd way. Most of the time it's just surface level insults and that's it. Here though, it's just so random and so absurd that it kind of makes it funny because of that. I'm not sure though, but it's such a stupid thing that it is honestly kind of funny in how stupid it is. I'm sorry. It's honestly fitting that I reference the Slim Shady Show and its constant celebrity bad jokes here, because in one episode of the Nutshack, there's like a parody cameo, whatever, of Eminem, and the first time I saw it, all I could think of was Slim Shady Show. It is now my personal headcanon that the Slim Shady Show and the Nutshack take place in the same universe, and you cannot convince me otherwise. I'm sorry. On the other side of things though, there are moments where the show can be really hard to sit through. There's an episode, it's the final episode of season 1 actually, that is about, it's like a superhero parody basically. It features Phil and Jack as two superheroes named TT Boy and Kid Oot Oot. I have no idea what this means. Okay, this is definitely a Filipino thing that I'm not gonna understand at all. It basically has Phil and Jack as these superheroes, as well as like Tito Dick as like this villain, and on paper this sounds like it could be like a funny, entertainingly bad episode, but it's not. In fact, this is probably the worst episode of the show. It's filled to the brim with a lot of like gross out moments and whatnot, and it's just not funny at all. Like, it feels like it's trying too hard to be like offensive and whatnot, and it's honestly not funny. Like, it doesn't work at all. It's like Slim Shady Show levels of bad, you know? That's the craziest thing. Like, this can almost be as bad as Slim Shady Show. There's no moment in the episode where it's like, it could be funny bad. The whole episode is just really hard to sit through it. I'm not sure if I can even be able to explain, like, the plot of the episode, because I don't want to risk demonetization. But yeah, that just gives you a little bit of an idea of how the Nutshack can be. Sometimes the Nutshack can be the funniest thing you've ever seen because of how bad it is, and then other times it is a f***ing nightmare to sit through it because of how bad it is. It's crazy how it could be like that. Again, though, the funny bad outweighs the offensive bad, thankfully. The voice acting in this show is really bad. I don't want to be like too mean because this is a Filipino show, so like there's obviously all the voice actors and whatnot are gonna be Filipino, so like I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that, but sometimes it is really hard to understand what these characters are saying. It's not just Horatio that's hard to understand. Sometimes a lot of these characters, like Phil, is like really hard to understand what he's saying. Sometimes he has this like nasal voice, like it sounds like he has like a cold or something. Sometimes the poor voice acting and the fact that it's like hard to understand what the characters are saying, sometimes that can add to the funny bad nature of the show, and then other times it's just like it's really hard to watch it because you have no idea what the the characters are saying. So again, it's like a 50-50. I must say, out of every cartoon that I've looked at on this series, this is easily the most entertaining one that I've sat through. There's just so much that is wrong with this show. This is probably the only time I'll have fun watching an infamous bad cartoon. To be fair though, this show was very obscure for a long time. From 2007 to 2015, it was just this obscure thing that nobody knew existed. And then in 2016, it became a large meme. It became highly infamous and whatnot. And then after that, it just became obscure again. Like, I still frequently see people bring it up as like one of the worst cartoons ever made, but nowhere near as much. Its peak was in 2016. If I made this video back in 2016 when the show was a big meme, then yeah, there's a chance that this would be a much different video. But looking at it all these years later, long after it became a meme, it's honestly really funny in how bad it is. Out of every cartoon I've looked at on this series, this is easily the best one. Like, there's not even a competition. It's obvious where this should go on the ranking list. It must go at the very top where it belongs. The king deserves to be on top. The Room of Cartoons. The best worst cartoon ever made. I'd also like to take the time to announce that I have moved the search for the worst cartoon ranking list onto IMDb, as making the ranking lists myself has become harder and harder the more cartoons I look at and the more cartoons get added. So I wanted to make this list to make it easy. Eventually, at some point, I was going to use this list as like the main thing for the show, and well, now I'm using it, so yeah. The Nutshack is the weirdest cartoon I've ever seen in my life, but it's also probably the greatest cartoon I've ever seen in my life, and also sometimes it is the worst cartoon I've ever seen in my life. While I was watching the Nutshack, I felt every emotion that a human being could possibly feel. It truly is a special show. It truly is one of the cartoons ever made. And god damn it, that theme song is good, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. After sitting through the boring nothingness of High Guardian Spies, this was like a much needed breath of fresh air. Finally, something that's funny bad. Something that I can watch it and I can make fun of it for how bad it is. I can enjoy it in an ironic way. Thank goodness for that. Anyways, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Adios.